my vice. Man up from Mars, he tripping, I put that on guard. I got the digits, but I am not calling. Wizard at night, this be that forum. I'm just gonna stack with that. Sunshine after that. Just gonna stack with that. Sunshine after that. So yeah, you know, I had a conversation with her, but it's like the signals is always crossed. I mean, like, I say yes, cause she asked me to say yes. And then she's like, I didn't want you to say yes. I wanted you to understood that a yes was required to answer the question. I was like, what?
Hola, folks. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the spot, the Stacked After Hours spot. I am your host, Natalie Cosby. Hola, Nino. Malik, welcome to the show for grown folks talk. So tonight is our viewers audience choice show. So every month moving forward, the audience will choose the show, and the show that y'all chose is mental health. Mental health matters. So that's what we're talking about. Our mental health, once whether we are in relationships, alone, so on and so forth. So y'all get ready, get your cocktails, keep those fingertips loose, because we want to hear your questions and comments tonight for tonight's panel. So let's get into it, because here at SI we keep it what? Lit and enlightening. Bring my sunshine in, Montaigne. Little fairy dust on her.
My fairy dust. I
Our
love it.
fairy dust. So, Anthea, this is our viewer choice show. Like, people said they want to talk about mental health, and this is
Yes,
what we're bringing up. So, mental health. And we've been
girl.
talking about it in terms of relationships, and our whole forum is about relationships. But this month, we've been really focusing on the individual. But when you think about your relationships and mental health, what's the first thing that comes up for you?
I could see where there was some self reflection that was probably needed in me in previous relationships. And um, and I think that I- you know this is a real tough topic to talk about, but I think um, sometimes we have to do like a self reflection and take a look at ourselves and how our mental state was in those previous relationships versus how our mental state is when we're out of them. And I
Hmm.
know I was a different person in my last relationship. I feel like I changed who I became, and I didn't like it there. And I love where I am now because I did get that space to take a breather, understand who I am, understand what I was doing, and not be focused on what he was doing. What was I
Yeah.
doing? Why was I there? What did I need out of that relationship? And you have to come to that realization. Sometimes it hurts so bad and we don't want to feel that hurt, so sometimes we stay out of the
Yeah.
convenience of not feeling that hurt. But
Yeah.
hurt is part of life.
Hmm. Hey,
Staying is
Tiffany.
not.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Tiffany. Hey, Aaron. Aaron is one of the people who requested this. He's new to our group, but he really wanted to talk
Aaron,
about himself.
thank
Aaron,
you
Michael,
so much,
welcome.
Aaron.
Yeah. So, I'm in a relationship that I think has been very positive for me.
Mhm.
But the work that I had to do to get there, coming from various situations that were probably toxic. And, I sometimes we're always like, he this or she that, but I had to kind of
Right.
I had to look at myself.
Yes.
looking at yourself in a way and actually doing some work to kind of figure out why you did that, or why you stayed, or why you even may have even perpetuated some of the behaviors in the relationship, has really
Natalie,
made me kind
sometimes,
of, yeah.
yes, sometimes we don't even want to be with ourselves or love ourselves
Mhm.
enough to be with ourselves, to explore who we are. Sometimes we're scared of that. And
Right.
I'm wondering if maybe that's where I was in the past. But I do enjoy me now, my quiet time. I could travel if I want to by myself or with friends, it doesn't matter. But I love me and who I've become and who I'm becoming, because I'm a work in progress. And it takes time, though. You just don't get up one day and you're like, oh, I'm healed, I'm good. It takes time.
Right. I mean, I think after my last, before I got into this relationship, I had some therapy for a couple of months, just to kind of sort out my own blame and whatever.
Right.
And she was just like, have you forgiven him? And I
Yourself.
was like, why? She's like, so you can forgive yourself. And understanding and she's like, why? She's like, what are those things that you have been really, you know, holding on to? She's like, because if you look back, it's probably just not him. The things that you've been doing is probably the things that you have been doing in every relationship that you haven't taken
Yes,
accountability for.
yes,
And on
yes.
top of that, what is that really about? Yes, Aaron, self-love. I agree. I think the thing is like you got to learn to love yourself. There's like being in a relationship with yourself, and you have all these gooks. I always say I have conversations with myself. It's really conversations with my higher self or God or whatever you want to kind of sort out my mind. But in this current relationship, I always tell him, I was just like, we need to talk it out. Always ask me questions. I may not be ready to answer, but I will answer you because I want to, not saying it's a right answer, but I just want to think it out and really be
You
clear,
know,
not be forced.
it's funny you said that, because people could not, or people that I've been in relationships with in the past could not get a straight answer from me. I
Mm.
always beat around the bush and I always avoided the answer, or the answer to the question. And sometimes it could be a simple question for me to just say yes or no. I
Yeah.
want this or I don't want that. It took me a while to get to that point. And actually, somebody pointed it out to me. Somebody that I was seeing one time, a younger guy, and he was like, let me tell you something. You never answer any questions. And even like sometimes when people would ask questions, like in the groups and stuff, he would say to me, Anthea, do you realize you don't ever answer a question like yes or no? You always beat around the bush and you're always vague with your responses. And I wonder what that was about, though. Why was I not getting to that point of clarity in my responses? But I'm
Hmm.
glad you actually mentioned that. I don't know. I still don't know what that is about, and I'm hopeful that I'm a little bit more clearer when I'm responding to questions of what is it that you want from me, or what is it that you want.
I think it's, you know what it is? I think it's even more importantly for what do you want for yourself? Right? I
Yes,
mean, I mean, we're so like, what do I want? What da 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 da? Like, whether you have somebody or not, what do you want for yourself? Like, what brings you joy? What are your fears? What are the things that you're hesitant about, and why? And I think the other thing is, it's just like I know I had a constant story in my head to justify my bullshit. You know what I'm
yes,
saying?
yes.
I had that story where I was just like, girl, you good. Da, 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 da. And it
He
started
just miserable. He just blah blah
right.
blah.
Right. It would, and I have to. I know people call me shady, and I realized that was my own guard and defense mechanism to kind of keep myself protected or not get too vulnerable or too open when I knew deep down, like, what are you hiding?
But
Because
can I tell you, for some unknown reason, and I have no idea why, I am drawn to shady people. I don't know if that's something that I need therapy for, but I, something about it just makes me feel like that person is a little bit more honest than somebody who always try to give me a compliment or tell me, oh, you're beautiful or whatever. Like they wouldn't call me out and be like, Anthea, girl, them earrings don't match that outfit. I can deal with that
absolutely. Aaron said,
that
y'all, we're preaching. Yes, take the time for self-reflection. It's paramount for growth. Yeah,
absolutely.
you know what, Anthea, I look, I'm honest. I think people are honest, but there is something with shade that has a little bit of meanness to it. Is sometimes it's fun.
But I like
It's
the
a fine
villain.
line.
The
It's
villain is always fun.
it's a fine line. It is a fine line, but it's sometimes I've met people who are just constantly shady. I'm like, well, damn. Like, it like there's
But
no
the
joy.
villain, but Natalie, everybody loves the villain in every movie.
They
Just
do
so
because
you
they're
know,
honest. But
they're
but
honest.
it's also the thing is as they always say, hurt people. Sometimes it comes out as comedy, sometimes it comes out as other things. But yeah. Well, let's
But yeah. Oh yes, it is time to bring in his
it is
closing.
girl, because we could talk about this as Aaron said, we preach it. We could talk about this all day because we sit up here having our own therapy session with each other. But
Mhm.
okay, so Montaigne, let's bring in the panel. Hi, hello. So she has been on Good Morning America twice, and she is my cousin, attorney at law, Esquire Danny Cosby Esquire. I think I said that right. Either way, I flipped it. Say hi, Dana.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. And then, of course, look at him. Ice T used to live next to him. You know he's important. Mr. Rashad Coles. Hi, Rashad. And then later we're gonna have our therapist Patrick join us in a bit. So you guys, what we were talking about earlier, how has mental health or how has certain aspects affected your relationships in general?
Okay.
I'll defer to the lady.
Oh, great. I thought you were going to, I'll go first. Okay. Um, Actually, for me, I had a very late realization about mental health as it relates. I'm an achiever.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was preparing for my career, I read every book, I had mentors, I knew you had to have the right mindset. And then when I had children, I read all the books, tried to make sure I had, no generational curses and things to children. But I didn't do that with relationships. I've been married twice. I didn't read any books. I didn't make sure I had the right mindset. I didn't assess my skills the way I did as a mother and as an attorney. And I realized that later, after some failed relationships, I'm like, oh yeah, so you're good at everything but your personal relationships. And I wonder about that, why I never thought that was something I needed to be good at, that I needed to have skills for, but that's where I am now.
Mm,
I like that.
I like that,
I like
Dana.
that. Yeah, I've never actually heard it in that form. Like we prepare for everything, an interview, a job, a role, but not for a relationship.
I think especially when you're highly intelligent, which most people on this panel are, um, you kind of think you're not an expert, but you kind of like your capacity, and you're like,
Hmm.
oh, I can do that. I'm black excellence on all fronts. And then you realize black excellence can be exhausting at times, especially when we're talking about our emotional state. Rashad, I know you're the only brother. We're gonna have Patrick come in later. But what has been some of your, because I think you always talk about this, Rashad, and I think you got some good insight, but what has been some of your own journey in mental health, especially when it comes to relationships and how they would have reflected for you?
Um, I guess dealing with in my younger years, I probably dealt with just being a young angry man, just
Mhm.
just from you know just life, and not being able to channel that energy in a positive way, and those things led you know found their way into relationships in the form of impatience, arguments. You know, when you're young. You get into arguments, you storm out, slam doors. You know, hang up the phone. Play games and that sort of thing. And I think you could chalk some of that up to youth, but a lot of it is learned behavior, um,
Mhm.
and it's a coping mechanism that we use to shield ourselves from what we think would be more hurt. And
Mhm.
and then I waited till I was later, till I was older in life. I was 48 when I got married for the first time, and it manifested well after I dealt with the anger and things. I'm fine with that. I feel like I'm healed from that, but then to have someone else's um, baggage is not a good word because I don't like to term that as it's you haven't arrived at that particular level in your journey, because I think everybody, at least at some, at least, when you get late 30s, 40s, 50s, you should definitely be on a road towards some type of spiritual and emotional health. Um, so, not having those things in place before I got married, I think led to my marriage failing because we definitely weren't, we were feeding on each other's issues. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It does. Look, I think I'm the only one who's never been married. So can you, all three of you guys, can you guys kind of speak to um the mental capacity, because people are always like marriage is hard, marriage is hard, marriage is hard. The capacity it took for you to keep it together, or what kind of really took, because I feel like I don't know if marriage is different from most relationships. People say it is, people say it isn't. But
It is different.
go ahead.
I just have one quick statement. I like to say that when I hear people say marriage is hard,
Hmm.
I like to counter that by saying marriage is work, but it shouldn't be hard.
Right.
Because if you love what you do, it's a work. You enjoy what you do, but
The
it shouldn't
job.
be
Yeah. Hmm.
right.
You're right. You're
Yeah.
exactly right. I was with a friend this weekend and she was just like, I hate to admit it, but it's really not that hard when you kind of gel and like each other and kind of,
You gotta be friends first. You gotta like the person
yeah,
first, and
yeah,
yeah, there's a lot
yeah,
of compromise. And the
yeah.
thing
But
about
what did
marriage,
you,
you can't just run away and be like, "Look, I'm going home." Y'all live
right.
together.
Yeah, I believe it was Wayne Dyer who said when he gets up every morning and he chooses his relationship, you know, because all of us have a choice. So
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
start the day out saying, I choose to work with you today.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, that's 3/4 of the battle won already.
Yeah.
I mean, so I guess, so with that, the choice to be married, the choice to be in any relationship, and also being self-preserving for yourself, how has that how has that shown up for you guys up to this point? What is it looking like now? What are some of the things that you are working through at this moment?
Again, I'll defer to
I think I'll go back to, I've heard everything you guys have said. I think that's why people have very similar experiences, because we're all hearing the same things, watch the same movies. I actually grew up in a household of married people, so I even had role models of, that. But I think I have I don't, when I talk to my children about marriage, I don't say any of the things that people said to me. Because I think what I've learned now is that person is they're your person. The way you feel about your friends, they're your ride or die, the person you're going to go through things with. They've chosen to be your person, and so so when I think about my other relationships, I don't think of them as work. I don't describe my friendship relationships as work. I don't, even my client relationships don't always feel like work. I just think marriage was something I was trying to achieve. I approached it like a job, I was, so I feel sorry, to be honest. I mean, my husbands were terrible, but I do feel sorry for them because they didn't really get a chance to have a real marriage relationship. Like, we didn't do it. It's something we didn't get to do because I don't think we knew what it was and we didn't know how to do it.
So
I think we spent, yeah.
Could I ask you, what do you think a real marriage relationship is if you didn't have it? What does that look like for you? What does a real marriage relationship look like for you?
Well, okay, Sunshine, I've studied this. So I'll give you my academic answer. Somebody introduced the idea of the triangular love theory. I don't know if you guys have heard that. No. So, okay, so you mentioned it earlier. There needs to be a level of friendship, of camaraderie, because that's the everydayness. Would you want to hang out with this person, if you had nothing planned? Would you just wake up and hang out with them? Because they're just somebody you like being around, and it's going to be enjoyable and easy. Are you attracted to their person? Is there chemistry? Are they your romantic partner? And then, are they committed to you? Are you committed to them? And it's funny because I think for most of my friends, when we heard this, I think I've had 2 out of 3. I have not had 3 out of 3 yet. And I think for a lot of us, we thought with 2 out of 3, we were doing good. And it looked good to everybody else. It's like we didn't know what we were missing. And so now I kind of know, okay, because I don't want to say we settled. I think we all just felt like 2 out of 3 was pretty good.
So in terms of your mental state, Dana and Richard, how were you, or do you feel like you were different with your mental state when you were in that marriage versus now that you're not? And I'm not asking you if it was better or worse. I'm just asking you, do you feel a difference in your mental state?
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. It's almost like you have the benefit of some hindsight, on the back end of a marriage that's ended. So you get to look back and you can kind of do some, a little post-mortem on it and learn from, if you're honest with yourself, So, you could spend years and decades saying it was the other person's fault. Or you could, say, what, I was impatient. Or, what, I could have gotten up and taken that walk when she just wanted to go. I could have gone to the grocery store, So those little things like that. And then, we could have trusted each other more, or, things like, I could have, or she could have picked battles more wisely and not make everything the beginning and end of a marriage, right? So yeah, you get, and you get to basically see that you had these icebergs, you know, which are just the problems on the surface that you can see, but then you have like a gigantic obstacle under the water that you don't necessarily see. And those are the things that that person brought with them into the relationship that hasn't yet come to the surface. It could be insecurity. This person could be suffering from depression. This person could actually be bipolar and never got diagnosed from it, you know, with it. So, you know, yeah, there's a lot of things that you get to, you know, make, you know, you get to see after you've walked away and you've gotten some space from it, some distance.
So Rashad, you did say, you know, you said hindsight is 2020. And I think we all have this, whether we were married or not. But once we get out of it, and what has the work look like Dana, what did the work look like between those two marriages for you? And what is the work now? You know, how do you prepare not even prepare yourself for the next relationship, just prepare yourself for you from a day to day mental state of just so you can be better. Or not, I hate better. I hate the word better, but being in a space where you feel grounded and solid and at peace, despite and holding on to the decision, whatever those decisions were you made. What does that look like now?
Yeah, I'm actually better. So I do like that word. It like I worked on my relationship skills. Like there's actual skills.
Like what?
that people-
Like what were some of the skills that you needed to work on?
Well, defensiveness. So there's certain approaches in conversation or interactions that kill a relationship. So it's called like the four horsemen of the, you know, of a relationship. You can't do them, right? Like I think it's like contempt, defensiveness, and so you know, and this is what you know, these are the therapist kind of words they tell you. Hey, you're being defensive. So like one of the relationship skills that I've had that you know, that I was told, you know, I was kind of proud of it. She's like, oh, no, you're really good at that. Okay, that's a good relationship skill. I don't know if you guys noticed that even when you're talking to me on this podcast, I'm good at emoting. I am very good at telling you how I feel, what I'm feeling in the moment. Like, you know, like it just comes easy. You know, I know some people struggle or feel uncomfortable describing their emotions. It just spills out of me.
Yeah. So before we go on, our therapist is in the house. I just want to bring him on. And Patrick Crawford, he's here. So we're going to bring him in. But all right. Hi, Patrick.
Hello, how are you doing? I'm fine. My apologies. Please forgive me.
No
Please forgive
problem.
me.
No problem. No problem. So we were talking about the work we do once we leave a relationship
Mhm.
and how people have dealt with things. I know I've had the past where I've jumped from relationship to relationship. Dana was talking about, and Dana, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you were talking about the work you've done in being defensive. I want to kind of stay with that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, because I consider, and you know, I was an athlete. I'm very into my career. So the therapists that I work with, they were like great coaches for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was very open to what they were recommending to me. And so, I mean, I took notes. So defensiveness, you know, whenever I would sit there and I had marriage counseling, I would sit there and as soon as I started talking, they're like, hey, Dana, you're being defensive. And it's like, wow, I wasn't even realizing how defensive I was. I mean, I know I'm an attorney, but I always felt like I was on the witness stand for some reason. I was defending myself, feeling like I had to defend myself all the time. And when you decide that you do not owe people, you don't have to defend yourself, no matter, even if they are attacking you. When you decide that, it is so much healthier. Like I just stopped defending myself. I stopped feeling like I owed everybody an explanation. And I enjoy my interactions with people so much more because of that.
Yeah.
Is it an attorney thing or is it a personality thing?
I think
The
people
defensiveness?
naturally defend themselves when they feel attacked. I think it's just something, especially when we feel like we've been violated or triggered. No.
I think it's both. I come from highly critical people,
Yes.
so you're always ready. Okay, and maybe that's why being an attorney comes easy to me because my skills were already ready.
Got you.
Like you got to be ready. People are constantly telling you. People are always telling you about yourself. Like they feel like they have to tell you. I don't agree with that. And so it was those environments that I was in, those skills got sharpened. Defensiveness was sharpened, right? And so I learned to not use that tool unless I was being an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to also, one of the best advice I got. So every time a therapist gave me this advice, I started feeling better. Like I started trying to put it in practice. And the other thing is, she said, Dana, you're a smart woman. The next time you talk to your husband, before you speak, ask yourself, what's the goal? Guys, you would not believe how much less arguing, less interact. They were like, when somebody tells something to you, like, Dana, what's the goal? And in my mind, the goal was always for us to get along and do better. And so I needed to remind myself, before you speak, make sure your words are consistent with the goal. Sometimes we're in autopilot and we just talk. But she said, nope, I want you to be, she said, I know you're thoughtful at work. I know you were thoughtful in school. I need you to do it in relationships. And so so even my friends and family, everybody's like, wow, like, because you can put it into practice. But the most important thing is I felt better. My interactions with people were better when I started thinking, what's the goal before I responded.
So Patrick, go ahead. Patrick, I
Okay.
wanted you to speak on what Dana was talking about as far as
Okay.
like defensiveness and goals. I like that, Dana. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So first of all, I think that a lot of times when it comes to that defensiveness that you're talking about, I think that's more socialized. It's not it's a developed personality trait that we carry with us from youth, and we tend to gravitate towards accentuating that aspect of us because it gives us a form of strength. It makes us feel comfortable. It empowers us. So a lot of times that's our fallback. That's who we are normally, and we are comfortably. I think that for most people, so for example, Dana, you're very cerebral when you're thinking, logical, makes sense. There's an outcome. You're trying to do that. A lot of times when I do marriage counseling, those individuals that are seen to be very cerebral, very logical, I try to tap into their emotions, but not the emotional vocabulary, but the feeling that is trying to be accomplished in the process. And a lot of times when we go into relationships, and I was listening earlier, and so there were a couple of things that I wanted to say as I was making my way to a place where I could actually see you guys, is that when it comes to the friendships, I heard you say triangular. What is it? What was it that term you use? Triangular.
What is it, Dana?
What was the word?
Triangular love theory. Hey guys, this is not scientific. I was told this at a dinner party.
Okay.
Yes. And so the reason I was interested in that is because you said that you want friendship, then there's an attraction, and there's a connection. I think those were the three things that you were speaking of. And I believe that those are foundational things, absolutely. But I think it also has to be a genuine understanding of self. And then there's a reintroduction of that new self throughout the relationship so that you and your partner are both on the same page throughout the process of connecting and becoming more intertwined and being more understanding. So when we're cerebral and the training that we have been indoctrinated with as an attorney or as a musician, as a doctor, those things tend to be our safety. We feel so comfortable in that role. And when we become comfortable in that role, to me, that's a mask. It's a mask that we have taken on because that's the mask that's acceptable. That's the mask that has empowered us. That's the mask that has given us status. And so ultimately, when we rely upon it, it's our fallback because we spent so much time investing ourselves in creating it. And so one of the things that I'm always recommending is see if you can start to peel away the mask that you have become so comfortable with, not because they're not needed, not because they're not beneficial, but because there's an authentic you that exists. And sometimes through years and years of socialization and indoctrination to become Black excellence, I think that's what you said.
Yeah, I did. I said Black excellence can be exhausting. Yes.
Because we spend so much time trying to accomplish that, we forget the foundation of who we are. We are socially, people, and we have a certain desire to be connected. And then once we start to look at our foundation, we start to realize the mask or the professional person that we've become, it has a place. And it's very, very needed in that professional realm. But then there's another part of us, because I believe I heard Dana or Anthea say this earlier, is that they spent a lot of time reading, a lot of time educating themselves about the other as a mother, as an attorney, as a lawyer. And so the other thing that we didn't do, as some of you said, we didn't indoctrinate ourselves in relationships. And it was funny when you said that, because how do we form relationships? When does the relationship start? When we start to engage someone. That's the question I want to pose to everyone in here. When does a relationship that you invest in, when does it start for each and every one of you?
I guess for me personally is when you see the person.
Okay. And when
even before you have a conversation.
Okay, let's start there. So when you see the person, what is it that what is the yearning or the longing for that relationship to continue or to be expounded upon? What's the next stage after you visually see them?
Connect.
Okay,
Talk.
so what is connection? What is when you're looking at connection, what does that mean? But as far as the conversation, what does that lead to?
It's finding not even common interest, just talking and understanding who they are and continuing the conversation and
Okay.
learning about them.
Okay, great. And during that exchange of you getting to learn about them, how much of you are you disclosing?
So this is a great question, because I realize I ask a lot of questions, but I don't disclose much in the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
I watch and see.
There's
Okay.
a barrier. There's a barrier that we kind of put up. We're like, wait a minute. I'm
Okay.
gonna ask you the questions, but I'm gonna keep myself back here until I feel
I'm
comfortable
ready.
enough
Right.
to disclose.
Got you. So there's an apprehension about being vulnerable within the stages of that development of that relationship. So one of the things I always try to do with my relationship, my premarital and even my marital counseling is I ask people to describe themselves 100 things describes that make them who they are. How many of you could do that right now? 100 things that makes you who you are.
Not right now, but
Not right.
eventually.
Give me the evening. I'll figure out 100 things. Let me come up with 2.
Okay. So the reason I ask this question is because a lot of times in our pursuit of engaging in a relationship is predicated and based upon the other person. That's what we're looking for to see if they pique our interest. But we fail to realize that we are part of the relationship. The building, we're part of the engagement. And so while we are taking in information, we're also shaping our opinion based upon what they share, based upon what
Yes.
they say. But what about us? What are we allowing them to engage us in? What are our interests? And I guarantee you, I could come up with 10 things about each and every one of you just by your appearance right now, because that's the
Go,
work
go ahead, Patrick. Start
sometimes.
with
Okay,
start with Natalie.
start with Natalie. I'll start with Natalie. Okay, first and foremost, the most obvious thing, she's a Black woman. She's intelligent. She's compassionate. She's educated. She's fashionable. She's committed. And she has a desire to connect. So those are the things that I can see about her right now. But you know the funny thing about it? She doesn't know those things about herself unless she spends time thinking about it. When you introduce who you are and you are sharing who you are and you can know yourself, that allows for the other person that you're engaging when you first see them to get to know you, because you bring that to the table, you share that with them. And in turn, you getting to know you also allows for them to get to know you. So then you have the ability to say, okay, as I'm introducing myself and I am getting my checklist of things that I may be looking for that brings about interest, there's a common ground that there's going to be authenticity, there's going to be openness, there's going to be dialogue, and it's also going to force you to do this: discover more about yourself so that you can introduce to your partner. And in turn, that's the exact same thing that you'll be doing with hopefully will be able to do with you. And so then you start to realize that as we're going through this process of getting to know each other, we are discovering not just those 100 things that we know about each other, but we're evolving, we're developing, and we're starting to realize there's more to us than we give credit to.
I remember, Patrick. I remember I was going to a church in California at a time, and the minister said he's like the best way to learn about yourself is really being in a full on relationship where you are open to
Mhm.
what is given and open to yourself, so you can understand who you are and reflect that in that other person. So you are preaching what many philosophies, religions, whatever you believe in, is definitely not preaching, but that is great insight. Um, yeah.
And so the reason I speak about this is because when it comes to relationships, we evolve every day. Just think about this. I think I'm old enough. I think we're all old enough to remember the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Wow.
Remember
Yes.
that person that used to come around and sell those books?
I don't remember
Mhm.
that. I'm too young
Oh,
for that.
you know, Anthony. So we used to all get that book, and it used to come out, I think it was every 2 years or 3 years,
Yep.
because they
With
kept
new
adding
information.
information. You are a walking encyclopedia, but the only pages that you earmark are the ones that you feel comfortable looking at.
So, Patrick, I have a question because stacked after hours. I'm going to talk about the group itself. We've
Okay.
been around for about 2 years, right? And I think somebody asked Anthea this question, like, who has gotten together? What has the group produced? So on and so forth. And what I'm realizing is there's a lot of contention between men, especially Black men and Black women. But
Mhm.
there's a lot of like, we can't, it's like who's smarter, one up, competition, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, how at this age do we start, and I mean anybody can talk to this, but if it's something that I see it and it's like, how do we start to kind of move out of the way, move that out of the way so we can start to do what you're talking about.
Okay.
Mm.
Is anyone want to go? Anyone want to
Okay.
try it? Anyone want to answer it?
Well, can I make a confession? as part of this. So part of, I was listening to what you're saying. Part of what I do, like how I move in the world or whatever, I've developed this fake intimacy where you tell, so like you said, so I start telling people things about myself very early in our interactions, so they start feeling comfortable with me, start feeling like they know me. And so I do it very early. I put, because, I do corporate law, so it's a lot of white males. And so I do this so they feel like they're comfortable with me. I do this with men. I do this at work. I do this with white women. I do this with my neighbors, is I tell you enough about me so you start feeling like you know me. But I think I started realizing that I don't go past that. Like I do enough to make them feel comfortable with me, but they really don't get to know me. I don't really share. It's just designed to get them comfortable with me.
I love that fake intimacy, Dana. I'm sure a lot of people do that and not even realizing that they're doing that.
So, Dana, my question is why?
Because it greases the wheel. Like I need to get, I'm being mercenary. I need to get them comfortable enough. When I was in law school, we called it as a Black woman, we called it getting you used to that third eye. Like sometimes when you walk in a room as a Black woman, you're almost like a cyclops. Like everybody's like, oh no, what do we say to her? How it's going to be uncomfortable. What are we going to talk about? So I immediately put them at ease.
So the third eye, most of the time, was referenced to the spirituality of an individual. We do know that, correct?
I've heard that reference, yes.
So the question I ask is that I wouldn't say that's defensiveness. I would say that's protection.
Yeah.
And the thing that I learned a long time ago is that, from my experience, most women want security. Most men want to be respected. However, the challenge is that both of them see those things very differently. And so, to answer your question, Natalie, about how do we move past it, I'm a very strong component of language, but I'm also starting to realize that language can be misinterpreted, because the message that we are conveying when I say I need security as a woman does not come across to a man the same way that it comes out of the mouth of a woman. Just like the understanding of respect for men does not come across through the understanding for a woman who hears respect. So I believe that, as I was saying earlier, those 100 things that I have them do, I also have them arrange them in a priority list, and then I have them cut off half. And now the reason I say I have them cut off half is because 50% of that list, half of that list, is only where you are at that moment with your available knowledge. That's the awareness. The other 50 that you cut off, that can change. Just like the list is just prioritized from 1 to 50, that may evolve and grow as well. But the question is, do we stay in that awareness and use that as a way to connect? When you talk about fake authentic, no, your terminology, I'm sorry, Dana, you said fake intimacy. I think that's what you called it. Is it fake intimacy? The only reason we fake intimacy is because of the fact, in my humble opinion, is because we don't trust that the true version of ourselves will be accepted. And so because we have that doubt, it makes it very difficult for us to reveal the true essence of who we are when it comes to relationships. And so when we're starting to talk about relationships between Black men and Black women, one of the most challenging things is we have to revisit our foundation, or at least establish a foundation, because so much of who we choose to be is meant for others and not about ourselves. We
So
don't
you're
look at the
saying, yeah.
relationship about us and what we're willing to be open and vulnerable to. We look at it as though, what does the presentation of us look like when we're together? And so that robs us of our own identity. It robs us, and I'm talking about individually, but it also robs us of our identity as a couple because we're not functioning as one. We're
Yeah.
functioning as two individuals that are together, and that's the presentation that we do. So to truly be able to erase that barrier, I think it starts with the individual truly being vulnerable enough and feeling comfortable enough to be vulnerable with the person they choose, and that person reciprocating that so that you truly can have a genuine relationship that is not predicated or based upon anything outside of who you are. And I'm talking about you as an individual and the partner that you choose. But that doesn't happen because the emphasis is on the presentation of what people see.
Mm, mm,
That's why we want to choose the good looking people. That's why we want to choose the people that make us look better. It's not about us at that time, it's about pleasing the audience, I guess.
Yes.
And it's also why people don't understand why your relationship failed because it looked good to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like, is there, I mean, in I know there's a lot of, we like to project that we got it all together. And I think the other thing is, it's just like understanding what I'm hearing from you, Patrick, is like understanding your own needs. And those needs are constantly evolving,
Yes.
and really unpacking. And I think the word needs are always, it's triggering, like submit, like there's so many words that
Yes.
trigger so many people. But that particular word is something I'm even learning while in a relationship. I was just like, oh, I want to be in a relationship, but I was like, wait, I need me time. I need some time to make sure that I can take care of me as well while I'm in this. And even when I was single, I was like, okay, I'm on the search for the next dude.
So my
But I'm
question
a hot mess.
so my question to you is this. What is wrong with you loving your partner more than you loving yourself?
What is wrong with
Here.
me loving my partner more than I love myself?
Yes.
Ooh, wow, that's deep.
Ooh, for me, my experience is I got lost. I lost myself and I don't even know if I was loving. I was just exuding, giving him more attention where I felt like I was neglecting myself. And I don't even know if that was my experience.
And so I'll just take your experience. A lot of times when we are looking for love or when we're looking to engage in that process, we think that love, which is what we are offering and what we're presenting, is the love that the other person is receiving and is needing. And the reality of it is, do we ever ask that question? What does love truly look like to you so that you can pour into it? Do we explain to them what love means to us so that they have the opportunity and the choice to pour that into us? Because a lot of times we have our own lived experiences that have taught us what we believe what love is. And the reality of it is, we've acculturated ourselves to seeing love through the eyes of others and then taking that and offering it and giving it and saying, this is love, this is love, this is love. But is that truly the love that they need or they're looking for? And then when it's not returned in the manner that we give it, we become frustrated. We become slighted. We feel like they've taken advantage of us because of what we've offered. But did
But
we ever
isn't
look
that
like?
expectation though?
Well, you can have expectations, but how many times do we talk about expectations? Conscious expectations. of love. Not that the bills are paid, not that the clothes are washed, not that the food is cooked, not that the kids are taken care of. Do we have a full conversation about the expectation of love and what we can and are willing to offer, and what the expectation of what we're receiving? Do we have that conversation?
I think it's hard for, is it hard? I think that's not saying it's a hard conversation, but it does take you to really know yourself to kind of start to explore that conversation.
I like that, Patrick.
Hmm.
It's an uncomfortable situation because guess what it forces you to be?
Vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
Absolutely. And when we start being vulnerable, then that means we start looking at our underlying challenges that exist, such
Come on, Brother
as
Patrick, you preaching tonight. You got everybody like we going deep tonight.
So I have a question, right? So we have this expectation. I mean, I've come to the realization that I have no expectations anymore, and that's a bad thing in itself because you have to have some form of expectation when it comes to relationships. Um, and just going back to a little bit of about talking about mental health,
okay,
right? We are, and I'm gonna speak about my specific situation. I am someone who really likes to nurture, take care, cook, serve, and the terminology. What's the terminology that everybody is scared of, Natalie?
Submissive. Submissive.
Submissive.
mm,
Submissive makes me feel more of a woman.
okay,
And I don't know if that is, I don't know why, but it just makes me feel better. But it's not that I give it to anybody. It's people who I believe deserve it.
okay. So I got a
Right?
question. I got a
Oh,
question
Lord.
real
Oh
quick.
Lord.
Rush, my brother. What you just heard from Anthea, if you were the man that were on the receiving end of what it was that she just said that she offered, what would that mean for you?
That would look like love to me.
Gotcha. You see how clear you were, Anthea, in expressing that? And
Mhm.
Rush was able to hear it and understand it and then embrace it because his love, what he's seeking, is similar to what you're saying.
Mm.
But you were very clear, very upfront, and you were able to articulate it. Now, my brother Rush, I'm going to ask you, what does love look like to you?
That's a good question because right now I don't even know if I can even answer the question because I guess love would look like for me being respected, honored, adored, affirmed, um needed.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. Thank you. So now, Dana, what did you hear Rush say, and how did you embrace that as love? How did that make you feel hearing that?
I mean, nothing he said sounded unreasonable
Okay,
or
unreasonable.
unusual. Like it sounded like it would sounded like what love would. I mean, I agreed with him on quite a few of the things he said, and it sounded familiar. So it seemed very reasonable to want that from someone. Is what I was thinking. That sounds reasonable to me.
Okay, so now I need you to turn off the cerebral part and embrace the emotional component of it, because that was the very cerebral answer. Now I need the emotional connection to what he said.
I think when you asked him,
I don't want to hear I
okay,
think. I don't want to hear I think. I feel.
well, I felt it. So what I felt when you said, Brother Rush, now what do you? And I said, oh, here we go. Now I'm gonna know why I've been, having trouble with men. Because I'm gonna hear what he wants, and I'm gonna go, oh yeah, man, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. Like I was expecting, because I'm in that mode right now, evaluating how things have gone.
Yes.
And the men that I've been in relationships with did not tell me. They did not articulate it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just knew, okay, they seem unhappy. It doesn't seem to be working. Anthony, I tried to like do the things. And I think that's what it just felt like. I don't know. I'm going to try out different things, but they're not telling me and I don't know. So I felt that feeling.
Okay. So
could I just clarify one thing as well?
Yes.
The thing about it is I don't mind also doing that with my friends, my girlfriends, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is something that makes me feel more of a woman, no matter if it's in a relationship or not. But if I am liking someone, or if I'm even interested in someone and they see that, that could also be, that could also be taken advantage of, right? This
This
girl
is
does
true.
this girl that, this da 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 da. So I'm very careful with that. But I love doing it. This is something that I love doing for my partner, my friends.
Somebody
No
said,
matter.
somebody in the chat, they said not many people truly know or understand what love is. But is love something that is defined by you and your partner, whatever that may be at that moment, and what it looks like for each one of you guys? Or whatever you, even individually? I'm asking.
I mean, I will tell you that I expected, I got married at a very young age. I expected the love from a man to be similar to the love that I received from my father.
Okay. We getting somewhere now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm on the opposite end of that,
Mm-hmm.
because the love that I got from my father, I didn't think that it was enough.
And that's even better, because guess what? Now you're both starting to articulate and understand for yourself what that love looks like and what it feels like. And there was a comment earlier saying that when my brother Rush was saying the things that he is looking to receive in love, the thing about it is he's looking to receive it because that's what makes him feel loved. But the question is, when he receives that, what is the reciprocation of that? But at least he's able to articulate what love is for him. And Thea, when you were expressing what love looked like for you, you were saying these are the things that I do when I feel like I'm loving someone. So the biggest thing that we have to be able to understand is two, you're both able to articulate what love is for you and receiving, because I think it's important to be able to have that information and then be able to have the conversation about that so that both parties have an understanding. When there's a lot of times we don't have that. And it's not about the expectations, it's just about the conversation that's necessary for us to truly understand what that looks like for us and what it looks like to offer to other people. And so I believe that if I can get Dana to not be so cerebral and allow her emotions, not the emotional words, but the true
Okay.
emotions to be uncovered, I
Okay.
believe that would be the part that would allow for you to shut down the cerebral and feel those things. Because the two things that Rush and Anthea said that were so important, they were tied to actions, but also feelings. that resonated within them when they were sharing them. Does that make
So,
sense? I'm saying it.
mhm, yeah.
And I
And
think
but it's funny. So feeling now, and I don't know if now, like, that's not a common thing where I come from.
I feel
Letting people. Okay, go ahead, Natalie.
no, I feel, but you know what? I feel like I no, you're right. We are raised in a family where we really don't. It's very stoic,
mhm,
right? My father was stoic. My mother is strong and stoic in her own way. I know she loves me, and
mhm,
that's probably why my love appears the way it does. Like somebody told me, I don't verbalize. I'll show you my love. I'll show up for you. It's not something that's always verbalized in a way, and certain people need that, and that's probably
mhm.
been my struggle. But it is when you have all of those things that you have been conditioned and socialized and raised around, like don't show your emotions. And I feel like that's very common in Black folks. I mean, I have dated men that are, even though I was a daddy's girl, we had our contentious points, and I end up dating men very similar to my father in my past.
So can I ask a quick question, back to mental health and therapy and all that? Are we able to recognize when we meet someone if they have not been healed or not? Are we able to recognize that?
Is that for me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for well, I guess for everybody on the
No, it's
panel,
for you.
because I know
Let's.
there's
I
some.
want Rashad. Let's because Rashad, have you been able to recognize when people have not been healed,
Sure,
or
absolutely.
if they have?
Sure, absolutely. I think that a couple of, I guess, points are, defensiveness, gaslighting, um, anger, passive aggressive behavior, things like that. I think that those things are an outgrowth of our own insecurities or our own egos that haven't um, been tamed yet. Or it could be something from childhood. A lot of, obviously we know that a lot of our issues do stem from our childhood. So it could be, you know, a myriad of things. But I think that those are some of the things that I certainly look for in a relationship, and I check myself on as well, to not be. Um, I want to be able to hear the hard truth about myself. If it's something that I'm doing, that is causing a partner distress, discomfort, I want to be able to hear that and be able to, just work on myself to make that, to ease that burden, so a person can feel more secure um, and comfortable in being able to tell me what's bothering them and not have to worry about that this is going to turn into an argument.
Mm.
Mm.
My response to Anthea is that I believe that most people carry traumas, emotional traumas with them throughout their lives. And while they have been magnificent for us in one area or two areas of our life, they've been challenging emotionally in other areas in our life. So when we talk about the clinical aspect of it, when we're talking about the true essence, I believe that a lot of our relationships are embedded in trauma. And the
Mm.
reason we struggle so much
Mhm.
is because there's never been a process of healing. There's been betrayals, even when there haven't been betrayals. They go back decades, you go back through generations. Um, you can look at even the evolution of those relationships based upon how women have progressed and made progress on their focus. I need to take care of myself. I need to be financially stable. I want to have children because it's important that I pass on, and I am going to socialize my children to be successful and to be independent. But the reality is, there's never been a process of us healing from the traumas that we've experienced. We can be very successful, have all the money, and have all the education that we have, both men and women, but we struggle with relinquishing that power because that's how we view, which is why I said earlier, it's the presentation. And that's the reason why we mask so much. Could you just imagine if I'm about to turn 50 this year? Could you just imagine if I went back, which I do because as a clinician, I feel like I always have to revisit myself, all of the decades of trauma, being a Black man, being someone who has had multiple guns pointed at him by police at the age of 13 or 14 for something I had no clue about. Growing up and moving from environment to environment, those are traumatic injuries that are emotionally impacting. Having a child that was said to be mine, not be mine, and the fact that when that occurred, how that tore at me. If I did not go back and heal from those things, I would not be as functional as I am today. And I'm functional. I'm not all the way healed. It's a process. But the awareness that those things exist, those are the commonalities that would allow for us to connect and evolve and grow together. But we don't always go back and look at those things.
Why is that, Patrick? Why do we never look at, because I always say it does kind of, why do we kind of just escape to
We
the
were
next?
so just okay. Let me ask you this question. I think
Mhm.
y'all about my age, more or less.
Mhm.
If someone hits you, what are you supposed to do?
Get it back.
Get them back.
And if they're bigger than you, what are you supposed to do?
Get it
Run.
back and run.
Get them back and then run.
Or,
Sometimes you may just run
or you pick up something, a
and
big
throw it
stick,
at them.
and
Yeah.
pick up something, right? So
Mhm.
our socialization as a people was to not focus on our injury. It was to make the person feel the way they made us feel. So we've been indoctrinated never to address our wounds, our emotional wounds. We were taught that if you hurt me, I'm gonna hurt you just so you know how it feels.
Mhm.
But what happens to the injury that you sustain? We have been socialized that you're going to be okay, you're going to be all right, get over it. It's a small thing to a giant. You're bigger than that. Don't let it stop you from accomplishing your goals. Don't talk about it. All of these things. And it's embedded in so many other areas of our socialization, of how we, especially as Black people, have been taught. Because we have to get up and we have to work. We have to get up and we have to pay for these bills, this house, this car, the food. So there's no time to address that. So, Natalie, to answer your question, the reason we don't is because it's never been taught. When we talk about healing, when we talk about being whole, excuse me, that's new information. But guess what? At this stage of our life, now we say, you know what? Now I can go back because I'm financially stable. I have these things. And so as we start to go back and look at it, there's another generation that's coming underneath us that's not going to get that till they get to this stage. They're not going to go back and look at healing. They're not going to go back and saying, oh, that hurt and I need to process it and I need to come to a place where I'm whole. That's not what's taught. And I'm not the only person with children, am I correct?
Like,
You're,
yeah. Patrick, I also wanted to add, I was also socialized like a civil rights activist where you tuck, you get down and you tuck so you don't get your major organs hurt. Like you
Yes.
learn to tuck. So I learned to tuck my feelings, and sometimes I can't access them anymore. So they were
Yeah.
put away to be protected. And then I did such a good job that I can't access them when I need them. Or when I want to, and when I feel like it's a safe now, it's okay to go to the feelings, but I got so good at tucking them.
And that's why I say we mask. We wear the mask. We wear the mask because the presentation is more valuable to us cognitively than the healing, which is emotional, which is spiritual.
So Patrick, I'm because we have about one more. We have like we're a little over. I'm gonna give us one more minute,
I'm
but
sorry. I'm sorry.
no, because we could probably be on here for the next 3 hours, honey. I'm telling you, like you are dropping jewels for real. Um, how and we can talk about more of this into the after party.
Okay.
How do we start to remove the mask?
Yes,
Okay.
and get together and come together.
Yeah,
Man,
how do we start to remove the mask so we can come together?
Okay. So I do a training called We Wear the Mask, and I do a training called it's called a RAPS model. It's a humanistic approach. I use it in clinical work. But the first thing we have to do is we have to be willing to be aware.
Hmm.
And a lot of times when we are aware, that emotion that comes up, we never explore that. I'm going to challenge you to do so. And when I challenge you to do so, I'm not saying do it in the midst of your professional being. I'm saying jot it down. We have all these iPhones and Androids that are high functioning technology. When that feeling comes about, use your recorder to say, you know what, I want to explore this. Because just like in life, things are continuously happening. And so as things continuously happen, once we become aware, then all of a sudden something else comes up. And that's actionable, that's practical, that makes sense. And we'll go on to that as opposed to exploring that feeling or that emotion that we experience. So I'm going to challenge you to say, you know what, when that feeling hits you, remind yourself to revisit it. Revisit it in a safe space. Revisit it where you can actually pull on that little thread so you can get to a deeper understanding. I encourage you, once you start exploring it, if you need someone to use I'm going to say a healer, because I believe that therapy, mental health practitioners, and healers are different. You can be a therapist and a practitioner because of your licenses and because of your degrees. But I believe if you're talking about healing, that's a journey that is supported by others, but it's one that you embark upon. And it's really tied to your emotions, which for me as a practitioner is tied to your spirituality. And so a lot of times we separate our spiritual self because it's not practical in the things that we do. But that's why I would start when you start to have that feeling, that's possible. That's part of the mask that you've utilized throughout your life. And now it's an opportunity for you to start peeling that away. Because if you can start peeling away that mask or that feeling and start exploring it, it'll start leading to the peeling of the other mask that you have been placing upon yourself. And then you start to realize that there's more that you can do by taking the time to explore that part of you, as opposed to saying, oh, I'm just going to function the way I've been functioning, with the hurt, with the pain, with the divisiveness and the things that Brother Rush was talking about the anger, passive aggressiveness. See, those are all outcomes.
Hmm.
People don't realize it, but every behavior that you exhibit, that's the outcome of something else. Ask yourself, if that's the outcome, what's leading to it?
Yeah.
That's how you start to peel away the mask.
This. Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I
We
don't
said we
mean
got to
this
send
to,
Patrick the bill tonight.
yeah. Well, in the same regards, right? I don't know if you're taking your patients, but I think Natalie will post your information in case people want to
Yeah,
reach
yeah.
you
I love it.
to
Healing
seek
and taking.
therapy. Yeah.
We're gonna continue this conversation in the after party because we have over. John's probably my producer's like, come on now. So come to the after party. Patrick, will you be there?
Yes, I'll be there.
Okay, yay! And Dana, will you be there? Rush, can you be
Yeah.
there for a couple minutes?
Couple of minutes.
Okay, all right, y'all. So, at least 30 minutes, right? But y'all come on in, and we will see y'all next week.
Okay.
Peace.
Thank you.
Join Stacked After Hours, The Spot, where grown men and women gather to have candid, also honest discussions about the state of life, love, and more. The Spot is a hybrid of in-person and weekly virtual gatherings. Join our Facebook group and answer our daily questions. Subscribe to our YouTube for our weekly live talk shows and join us on Zoom for our talk show after parties for lively conversations with other opinionated, grown, and sexy professionals. Just search, like, follow, and subscribe to Stack After Hours on Facebook groups and YouTube. Also like and follow our brand pages at Be Stacked Wellness on Facebook and IG. So wherever you are, at home or abroad, pull out your laptop, tablet, or smartphone and join in the conversation with the members of Stacked After Hours. The Spot by Be Stacked Wellness. See you there.
As you know, and if you are new to the Stacked family, we always keep our conversations lit and enlightening.